Hello. In this video we are going to use Maya to make a simple animation of the solar system. Now this animation is going to mainly instruct students on how to do a hierarchy based animation using groups and parenting to make the planets with very few keyframes go around the sun in a meaningful fashion. Now, I'd like to preface this that this solar system is going to be not accurate to a real solar system scale. We will, just kind of be getting the spirit of the solar system in the shapes and sizes of the planets. And I'm by no means an expert in all things space, so kind of taking an art view from this standpoint. So, um, first things first in this project is what I would like, if you are using Maya and using textures in it, you should really set up what's called a project. It's just Maya's way, and other programs do this as well, of handling files that Maya keeps track of. If you haven't created a project before, it's pretty easy to do. You can go up to the File window and go Project window here. So File, Project window. And then you can create a new one if you do not have one. I've already set this project to this, but if you were to create a new one, you can click on New here and fill out a name and give it a location. Now there is a default My Project folder directory. I usually just put the projects in there, or you can make it your own. Once you click accept, it will keep all those files together. Now this is great for larger projects that mainly use textures or other reference files outside of Maya. That way it knows where to look for them. Now you don't need to set a project every time. You just need to set projects whenever you change projects. So once you've created a project, which again going to File, Project window would allow you to create a project, you can switch back and forth between projects. Let's say you started something else by using the Set Projects menu option. Now, when you set a project, you just pick the main folder that you're going to. So if I wanted to go to a rocket ship project, for example, I've had a solar system, back to the solar system, you just click that one. A lot of students make the mistake of going into the folders, navigating to the actual scenes files, and clicking on a Maya file, and that's not what you do. That's separate from a project. So scenes are contained within a project. Now, once you've created a project, as you saw there, they create a bunch of folders to hold all your assets. Now, you don't have to technically do this before, but it's a better idea to do this before you start applying a bunch of textures. But later on, we're going to be going and adding textures to our things. And you can wait to do this, but I'm just going to get out of the way. And now since we're talking about it, I pulled my textures from a website called Solar System Scope. They do basically solar system models, 3D models type thing. It's a pretty interesting site. They have great textures. I will put a link into the video. Thank you, and call out to the site for providing these textures for educational purposes for students that wish to follow along and use these textures in their solar system. So I've already gone and downloaded these all, and what you want to do is you want to put them in a folder that is somewhere on your computer that you can get to. Like again, generally goes to the documents. There's a Maya folder, projects, and under the Maya projects folder, you can save out as many projects as you want. And under the solar system, what you're going to want to do is whatever textures you make with 2D applications or you find and you download, you're going to want to put them in the source images folder of the project. So you can see I've already went and downloaded a bunch of textures from that site and added them to the source images folder. So when I go to the texture part of this lecture, it's first going to look here. Now you can technically change it and go put it anywhere else you want, but the problem is if that file gets moved, then it would get lost in Maya, and oftentimes it comes out as a solid black texture when it gets lost. So just Maya again will look default in this folder, the source images folder, and it's just a safe place to put it. The image folder is where Maya exports out images. source images is what Maya imports. A lot of people kind of get those two confused. So just again, put all your images in source images folder. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get making on the solar system. I'll be sure to try to cover everything from brand new from here, but this isn't a first time video, so I might accidentally skip stuff. So if you need a little more refresher, please refer back to my more basic videos on the Maya interface. But I will do my best to try to navigate everything as I go here. Now we have our 4 views here. Largely we can do this in any view. I'm going to go ahead and start with my perspective. So again, I'm going to move my mouse over the perspective view here, and I'm going to tap the space bar to go to full view. Now thankfully, we don't have to create anything too complicated to do this exercise. It's just spheres. So I'm going to go ahead and go up to Create, Polygon Primitive, and I'm going to click on Sphere. Now, I have interactive creation on, which is a click and drag method. If you do not have that, it'll just make a sphere automatically. But that's okay. You can just go ahead and drag it in there, however you create it, and you can see you just create a sphere, whatever size you think is appropriate. It's not honestly that important that we maintain the exact same sizes and everything. So you'd be able to be close and still get the exact same results. So I think that's a fine sphere here for this, and what this is going to be for me is going to be my sun. Now it is imperative for the purposes of this demo for things to work that that the sun is at the origin. Now the origin in Maya again is the 0, 0, 0 space in the world, and it's marked by the slightly darker lines in this grid. We can zoom in here a little bit. They're slightly thicker. You want your sun to be at the origin. Now there's 2 ways you can do this. You can go into the channel box of the window, which is found on the right hand side. There's these tabs, and you can mark the translate, which is the positional data, make them all zeros. So if I come in here and I 0, 0 and tab, and you just tab through and type in zeros and hit return, these will go to the center. Now another way you can do this, and just kind of a sake to show you multiple things, is I can move this, and again we get to the translate tool by using the W key for translate. So we get the little arrows here. That's the translate tool. And when I move this, I can grab any one of these arrows to move it, but if I click in the center and move it, it moves in all axes at once. If I hold down the X key on your keyboard, and I apologize, there's a lot of quick keys. Hold down the X key, that's what's called grid snapping. I accidentally got in subcomponent mode there. It's good point to show that in a second. To move this and holding down the X key, it'll snap to the grid, and you can kind of eyeball it, and eventually it'll be 0, and you can confirm by looking here. Now, I did accidentally get in subcomponent mode. How that happened is if you right-click and hold on an object, you get a marking menu with lots of options. So if the object ever turns blue or does weird things like this, and you're first-time user or a new user here, all you have to do is right-click and hold and go back to object mode. They also have done this with the F8 key. The F8 key will toggle between back and forth between subcomponent mode and whatever subcomponent you were last on and object mode. Okay, so, alright, so there's my sun. And now it's a good practice to name your things. You can do this again also in multiple places, but I tend to double click on it either up here and the P sphere, or you can do it in the outliner, which the outliner is a list format of all the objects in your scene. It will come in very handy later, and it is usually turned on and off by this button over here on the left hand side. So this one right here opens up and closes the outliner. Again, list format of the scene. So you can either double click here, make sure it's on the like the words here, or you can double click it over in the channel box, and you can just call this whatever you want to call it, but I'm going to call it the sun. Okay, now we could go back up through create and create some more spheres here, but there's not really much need to that. Like I said, this is very simplistic in terms of modeling. We can just Control D to duplicate, or Command D if we're on a Mac, and we can just make some more spheres. And it will duplicate them and automatically add a 1 or 2, depending if you rename this or not. And then you can see now it says Sun 1. Well, I'll just rename this to Mercury. And what I'm going to do is scale it down. Now, it doesn't really matter which direction you go. If you went in a different direction, all that matters is well, it doesn't it's easier if you go along a single line. So if you went along the red line, that's fine. If you went along the blue line, that's fine. I mean, technically, we can even go up if we wanted to and make this still work. But it would be easier definitely to go along the blue, which is the z-axis, or the red, which is the x-axis. So I just moved it out a little bit by grabbing that arrow, again with the move tool, which is W key. Then I scaled it down. The scale tool is the R key, and all we have to do is click the R key, drag the little square in the middle, click and hold, and drag it around. Now, again, just for sake of simplicity, I tend to like to snap to increments. So again, I'm holding on the X key. There we go. And you can see you technically don't have to do that, but I just tend to do that. And then I'm going to go ahead and Control D again. You know, maybe I'll make this even a little closer. Why not? A little bit smaller. There's my Mercury. Control D. Move this one out. This one will be Venus. I'll scale this one up a little bit bigger than Mercury. Again, I'm just trying to get the feel, not be too accurate, honestly, on the actual scale on these things. So that's going to be my Venus. Renaming these as I go. Control D. Move this one out some more. I'll make this one Earth. And I'm not going to do every planet for this demo. Well, maybe I will. But I'm definitely not going to do every moon. That would be way too much. So I'm going to go ahead and do Earth. I'm going to leave Earth and Venus the same size. Go ahead and, I don't know if they are or not. A little more space here. There'd be an asteroid belt. I don't know if we'll show asteroid belts in this demo, but we'll see. I think Mars, sorry, is about half the size of Earth, but you know what? I'm going to leave it the same, just because I think it's, you know, it would be nice to actually. I think the asteroid belt might be after Mars. I'm not sure. Again, not my forte here. So there we go. All right, there's going to be my Mars, and what's next? Jupiter. So I should really get better at this. Our gas giant here, and then go out some more, and then I'll make Saturn, which is a bit smaller. Like I said, maybe I'll double check this before we put the textures on here. Jupiter, Saturn, and then next. Wow, I am pretty bad at this. Uranus, and let's size that down a little bit, and Neptune. All right, so once we get these all kind of made out here, we can begin to think about either texturing them or doing the moons. I'm not going to do all the moons, but I think I'm going to go ahead and do least Earth, and I'll probably do maybe I'll do 2 around Mars as well. But pretty much once I show you how to do them, they're all pretty much the same. So I'm going to go ahead and once again just duplicate this, and again keep it simplistic here. And I'm going to go ahead and shrink down this and make this the moon. You know what? I think I'll stick to the one moon. That way I don't have to think about, you know, I think it's Eros and Deimos or something for the Mars, but we're fine here. All right, so let's do the one moon, and you can see that looks good. We can see we got our planets here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to animate these around the sun. This is a very I guess, you know, like, you know, science project-y, you know, it's just kind of like a scale model. We're not trying to make anything fancy. We're just going to make them rotate around. And again, it's not going to be accurate. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate these, but if you try to rotate these, and you can hit the rotate tool by hitting the E key with any planet selected, currently I'm on Venus. If I try to rotate this, it's going to rotate in its own, almost like its day and night cycle, basically. So this, if we use the planet's current, what's called the pivot point, it's just going to spin in a circle, which we need that, especially for Earth. I don't know about the rest, but we definitely need it for Earth. So we have them spinning around themselves, but we also have them going around a sun. So this presents a unique problem. One which we're going to talk about a little bit later, mainly because I just want to put some textures on here first, because you can't really see the rotation. So I got a little ahead of myself there. Let's get some materials on here, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to solve that problem by and testing it by what we're going to do is create some groups to put them in to create the orbit, and then use the actual planets to spin around to create the day-night cycles. So let's go ahead and get a few materials on here. Now again, for those that are not familiar with Maya, Maya is a material-based program. You put materials, and then those materials contain things like textures. So it's actually very straightforward. This gray color here is Lambert 1 that's on everything. I don't recommend that you mess with that at all. So we're going to give all of these a brand new texture. We're just going to come in here and assign a brand. In fact, they're all going to be Lamberts again. We're just going to right click, and I'm going to go assign new material. I'm right clicking and holding, go and assign new material, or you can do assign favorite material as well. And we're going to go to Lambert and let go. And once we do that, it assigns a new material, but it doesn't look any different because it's also gray. But it did open up the attribute editor here over here automatically. If you don't see that open up, you can click on the planet, or in this case the sun, right click and go material attributes, and it should open it directly to the material attributes. Once you're in the material attributes, we can have whole videos on this, and I'm not sure how far we'll take this, but let's at least get some textures on here. These little checker boxes are the input nodes. If you click on the checker box to the right of color, we can choose to add an input instead of using the color. In this case, it's gray. We could change the color as well, but there's no point in doing that if we're just going to throw a file texture on here anyway. So I'm just going to click on this little input to the right of the color here, and it's going to open up that dialog. Just like I said earlier, eventually when I click on the correct one here, it's going to look for a file, but it's going to go straight to the source images folder of the project. That's why it was important to do that first at the very beginning. So now we have different kinds of texture nodes to choose from. Most commonly is file. We're going to click on file. It opens up this browser file node that's attached to it. Then we click on the folder icon. Click on the folder icon. And you can see there's a bunch of textures here. I'm going to pick my sun that I downloaded from that site and hit open. Now, if you don't see anything, which I don't, there are certain kinds of preview modes in Maya. So, for example, if you hit 4 key with your mouse in this window, it's wireframe. If you hit 5, it's shaded. If you hit the 6 key, it's to preview with textures, and that's what we have here. When you put a file texture on there, you have textures. So we want to preview with file textures. All right. So again, if you're very new to Maya, how we're moving around in here is Alt and your 3 mouse buttons. Alt left mouse to rotate, Alt middle mouse to pan, Alt right mouse to dolly. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat this now, adding the materials, and I'm just going to go through and re-add these. Now I probably should rename the materials as well, but for good practices, but for the sake of time, we're just going to go ahead and going. So assign favorite material, Lambert. I'm going to go ahead and click on the input and click on file, click on the folder icon, and I'm going to click down to Mercury. There's Mercury, open, and moving on. Good, good, good. Next one, right click and hold, go to assign favorite material, Lambert, click on the folder icon of color, or sorry, the input on color, click on file, folder icon, and then I'm going to do Venus. and so on. So I'm just going to go ahead and add these all, so that way we can get this done. You can repeat your last used tool with hitting the G key. In this case, it's going to assign a new material. It's going to assign a Lambert. So that's one trick you can do to save yourself some time. The G key, gamma key, and it just repeats the last thing you did. Moon, G, file, folder icon, Mars, and these textures are automatically already work for basic spheres. That's why I'd recommend these textures for education. Oops, not sure what I'm doing that for. Just hit the G key, file, moving on, get Jupiter in here, and then get Saturn. Maybe we'll even put a ring on it. I'd like to, but we'll see how time goes. Maybe that'll be for a future video. G, file, and then this one is Uranus. Let's see, JPEG. There we go. And the next one is Neptune. It should be Neptune. Okay. So now that we have textures on everything, you can actually see when I rotate, especially Earth, you can actually tell. And we'll talk about doing a space background and everything as well. So again, I can't get this to orbit around the sun without losing this. So again, what I mean by this is we have one pivot point. This is one point of animation. We can animate this around this point. You can move this point, of course. For those that have some animation experience, you can move this point. And how we move this is we hit the D key, the delta key. And what you can notice that the gnomon, which is the manipulator here, changes. I'm just tapping the D key constantly here to show back in between the two. So when it looks like this with it has almost like everything, this is pivot point mode. Now if I move this pivot point I'm gonna hold on the X key just for grid snap, but I don't need to. You technically don't need to. I can drag this without it, but I'm also gonna hold down the X key when I drag it. I'm gonna grid snap this to the origin, where the sun is. That's why I've said it was in the beginning. It's easier to put the sun at the origin. Now if I rotate this, it will rotate around the sun, but it's no longer rotating on its own day and night cycle. So basically we need to animate two different points. We need one that has a day-night cycle. Oops. One that has a day-night cycle, and one to go around the sun. So what we need is a second pivot point, but we don't need an object for it. This is actually quite easy to do. What you do is you group the object to itself, and a grouping is a form of organization. It creates a null object, i.e. an empty object that doesn't render, that has its own transform information that you can use to do whatever. You can animate with it, you can put things in groups, you can parent. So what you're doing is you're just grouping these planets to themselves to get a group so you can have two pivot points. So what I'm going to do is I'll just start with Mercury here. I'm going to go ahead and group this to itself. So I'm just going to go Control G or Command G if you're on a Mac, and I'm going to have a Mercury, and you'll see that inside the outliner, which is crucial again, it's going to have a group. Now, I set you up to succeed here because we put the sun at the origin, and some commands in Maya automatically put the pivot point at the origin when you do them. One of them is grouping. So as soon as I hit group, the pivot point automatically went to the origin. And guess what this is going to be? This is going to be our orbit. So this can be, I'm going to rename this so it's clear, the Mercury orbit. And I'm just using orbit as a term for going around the sun. I might be even using that wrong. I don't know. But now if I click on Mercury orbit and then I click on Mercury, you can see how we have two different pivot points. One is to go around the sun. 1 is to go around the planet itself. So let's do the planet itself first. This is really easy to do if you set up the hierarchy right, and that's the hardest part, is you set up the hierarchy. Once you get the hierarchy set up, the rest of it's actually only a few keyframes. It's actually really nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get the animation part set up by picking some arbitrary amount that we want this to be. So I mean, you can make this any length you want. If you look down in the bottom right-ish area, you have a FPS, your frame rate per second. Maya by default is a 24 frames per second program. There's a drop down here. You can change this to whatever you want. If you change it to, I'm just going to click on 30 frames per second because it's easier on math for me. If I click on 30 frames per second, the frame rate is now 30 frames per second. That means it takes 30 of these frames to equal 1 second of animation. So if I come over here and set the time to be, let's say, 300 frames, that is a 10-second long animation. That might be too short, to be completely honest, because we're going to have them go around. But I'll go ahead and start with that, and then if it's too fast, then I can show you how to change your keyframes, which would be nice. So I'm going to go ahead and keep it like that, and I'm going to go ahead and key this. And the great thing is you only need 2 keyframes of animation to get any of these processes to work. We need one at the very beginning and one at the very end. So the one in the beginning is the rotate, and in this case, if I just come out here and click on the rotate tool, which is again the E key, and figure out which way I want this to rotate, and again, all I'm doing, it's hard to see it. If you can't see your gnomon plus and minus keys, make this bigger and smaller so you can see it. There we go. It was like perfect size. It matched Mercury. All right, so if I click on this one right here and just click and hold, and like, oh, I'm looking. That's the rotate Y. Undo, go back to 0. So there is a lot of ways to set keyframes. If you guys watched my more basics in animation, you'll be probably familiar with them. I'm a little bit of a purist. I tend to try to do as few keyframes as possible. So I'm just going to right-click on the word rotate Y. Missed. Try that again. Right-click on the word rotate Y and go key selected. And then we're keying at 0. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to the very, 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 very end, frame 300. And you technically don't have to, but it probably would make a lot of sense if you made the values here divisible by 360, i.e. once a perfect circle. So, and again, I really don't know. I think technically, I can't remember honestly if Mercury spins less. I mean, it goes around the sun much faster, but I don't know its day-night cycle. To be completely honest. So I'm just gonna say, I don't know, 720. 720. And then I'm gonna go ahead and key select it once again. And what we will do is with those 2 keyframes, which are denoted by these little red lines down here, if you did everything right, again, on frame 1, it is 0. And on the last frame, it's some value of 360. I did 720 here. It should spin. So again, to start to play the animation, the bottom right, hit play. And you can see it spins, but for those of you with a very keen eye here, you'll notice that it kind of slows down. And then it kind of slows down and kind of goes at normal speed. And then once again, when it gets towards the beginning and ends of the animation, it slows down. This is because Maya by default is often used for character animation, which you create a lot of keyframes in. So it tends to do what's an ease in, ease out, or an S-spline, whatever you wish to call it, type of keyframe motion to help with character animation. Now, physics-based animations, in this particular case, you would want what's called a more linear animation. You want it to be a constant speed. So it's a very easy fix. Unfortunately, I have to take you somewhere else, but it's a great place to go check out anyway, especially once you get more experience in animation. We'll only be using it for one small thing, though, in this particular project. So once you've animated it, you have to change it from S curve keys, which is ease in, ease out, what you were seeing there, to a linear. And to do that, we go to Windows, Animation Editor, Graph Editor. graph editor is a graphical representation of all what your keyframes are doing. Time is on the horizontal, value is on the vertical. You can see, like I said, this is an S curve. It's an ease in, ease out. If it is, I said if this line was linear, it would be a constant value change over time. But what we're having here is a flatter slope here, which means it's going to be, doing this operation, whatever it may be, over more time, thus be slower. And then it's more fast here, then slows down up here again. So what you can do is you can select these keyframes. And again, I'm just holding the mouse down, left mouse button, and dragging a box around them. You can select those and use the little slash here with this dot in the top left-hand corner. It's like a downward slash, and if you click on this, this converts whatever keyframes you have selected into linear, like that. So you want basically a straight line. Now, a couple other tidbits here in case you somehow get into trouble here. The navigation in this graph editor is done with Alt and middle mouse to pan and Alt right mouse to zoom in and out. You also can hit the F key, which will frame anything selected or unselected. So if you have nothing selected, it just makes all the keyframes fit. You hit the F key. And then if you have, like, well, I don't have too many keyframes here. If I hit the F key with something selected, it will frame that one, but I only have 2 keyframes, so there's nothing I can do with that here. The F key also works, just, tidbits here, in this view as well. So F key frames something selected. A key frames all, which means if you have nothing selected, it frames everything in the scene. So F and A will let you toggle between your framing options. And again, we're going to come back to this animation editor, graph editor, a lot. So if you have 2 windows, feel free to leave it open. I'm going to slide it over here for right now. I'll bring it back over when I do stuff, but I'm going to go ahead and put it over there for the sake of things. So now if we look at this and hit play, you can already tell right off the bat it was pretty constant speed here. And it should stay constant. In fact, you shouldn't even notice it. Technically, there's a 1 frame jump there. Little side notes. If you wanted to loop perfectly, you should cut out 1 frame of the last one. So it should have been 359, or sorry, what was it? 720, so 719. 1 frame less. What did I put for my thing anyway? Did I do my math wrong? No, 720. So we would want 719 if we wanted that to loop perfectly, because it's going to come back around to the next one on the very first frame of the thing. So it has a 1 frame snap, but I'm not gonna deal with that in this particular case. It's barely noticeable, and especially once you're getting farther away. So you can see it has stalls out for 1 frame. Okay, so it's spinning around. That's great. And this is what the great thing about this is, it's completely contained. So we're using Mercury to animate the day-night cycle of Mercury. Now, again, for the orbit, it's going to go around the sun. And again, because we created a group, and the group's pivot point is at the sun, or the origin, we don't have to do anything with that. Now, if for some reason you didn't build your sun at the origin, you would have to move that pivot point to the sun. And again, pivot point mode is the D key, the delta key. So you'd have to move it. I strongly recommend that you build your sun at the origin and do it this way. You can move everything after the fact if you have plans to move it somewhere else. That's absolutely fine. You can put everything in 1 big group with no animation on it and move the whole thing. This is just much easier to build it this way. So if you haven't done this like this, I advise you to back up and then do that, because again, it will save you a lot of time. All right, so to animate this orbit, it's the exact same way as we animated Mercury here. Again, at keyframe 1, I'm just going to add a keyframe to rotate Y. Key selected. I'm going to go to the last frame, and I'm going to make rotate Y some value of 360. Now, again, this is not going to be an accurate representation of the solar system, but I want Mercury to be faster around the sun than all the other planets. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to count up these planets, and I'm probably going to make this one 360 because it's the last planet on the list. I'm just going to add 360 to all these just to make it super simple. So I'm just pulling up my calculator here real quick. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 planets. 360 times 8 is 2,880. Yay, math. So 2,880, I'm going to go ahead and key selected. So once again, I'm going to go back to the beginning. I got my 2 keyframes on my orbit now, and I'm going to hit play. And what you're going to see is, once again, the exact same problem. Maybe you might not see it as before. That is really fast. Maybe I'll cheat and maybe make the other planet. Oh, we'll see how the whole thing looks first. So there it is going around, because I said I'm doing this kind of thing. What we're seeing here is we're also once again seeing the S curve. So again, you're going to have to go back in the graph editor for pretty much everything. You can do it all at the end if you want. But I'm just going to select, drag a box around these, click on the little line here, make them linear, because this again is a more physics-based animation. We don't want this to be in S curves. Granted, you could go and change the defaults, but it's not really worth our time to do that right now. It's not that bad. So there it is. That is really fast. Really fast. I don't know how I feel about that, but like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and stay the course and see how it goes. So, all right, let's move on to the next one. Now Venus is the exact same thing. I'm gonna go ahead and animate Venus rotating around itself, and again, it's real simple, especially with this one. Rotate, key selected. Go to the very last frame. I don't know. I'm going to do 1440. Or maybe I'll do 1080. 1080. We'll do 1080. Why not? And then I'm going to rewind this and play this. Of course, it's going to be fine. But again, we're going to have that S curve. Bring this back over here. F key to frame this. You can see there's the S curve. It's spinning, but it's going to slow down at the end. See? And what we're going to do is stop this. Select these keyframes. Linear. Move this off to the side. Rewind, play. It is now a constant speed. All right. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make its orbit. So I've got Venus over here. I'm going to hit Control G to create its own orbit, i.e. group. And I'm going to call this Venus orbit. And go back to the very beginning. Once again, keyframe Y. Rotate. They're all, spoiler alert, they're all going to be zeros because I'm doing the whole planetary alignment thing here. And then the only thing that's changing is the last keyframe. And again, I'm just going to decrease each one of these values by 360. So last time it was 2880. I'm just going to minus 360 off that, and we're going to get 2520. And I'm going to key that there. Okay, let's take a look. And you can see already it's going around, but already, again, S-curves. This is the other, like I said, very repetitious here. So I'm going to make that linear. Again, graph editor, graph editor, select the keys, and do linear, the linear one here. All right, so we rewind this, hit play. As you can see, there it goes. I think these are a little too fast, but the problem is if I slow them down, Neptune won't make it all the way around. You know what? I'm just gonna, for the sake of it, I'm gonna go ahead and no, we'll just go in order. This is the last one now. This is gonna be the hardest one, and the reason it's going to be the hardest one is because it has a moon. And the other planets will have moons too, but they'll be harder too. So we can do the first part pretty easy. So we'll just repeat what we know first. We'll go ahead and do the day-night cycle, key selected, and then maybe I'll do, I don't know, 1440 for its spinning. So 1440. So we have 4 spins to represent its day-night cycle. Go to the graph editor, make it linear while I'm at it. And you know what? We'll go ahead and do its orbit as well, and then we'll figure out the moon. So select this one, Control G. Earth orbit. We'll do what we know. And we'll make this one frame 1. We'll keyframe rotate Y. Go to the very last one here. And again, we're just going to do minus 360 off our last value, which brings us to 2160. It would help if I have it selected. And then I'm going to go ahead and key that. And the great thing is if I'm wrong in my value, my math here, it's not that hard to go back. 360, 720, 1080, 1440. Yeah, it's correct. Okay. All right. So 2160 for the Earth orbit. Now, if you click on a lot of mistakes people made, you see I clicked on Earth here. If you see it in the outliner, you can always click on it, of course. But if you click on Earth, you can move up and down the hierarchy by hitting the up and down arrows on your keyboard. And make sure, again, you always come in and make them linear. You'll notice it once you animate it, but it's easy. All right. So if we do this, this should be all set. Hit play. They are going around. Wow, that is so fast. Doo-doo-doo. Granted, if I give this more time, because it's only 10 seconds, it probably would look fine. That's another reason why I'm not too worried about it. It does look too fast, but 10 seconds right now is what we're doing, because it will keep the video shorter instead of us previewing on 30 seconds. So I'll show you how to slow the whole thing down at the end. All right, so we need to get the moon to stick with the Earth. So we don't have to animate that. The great thing about hierarchy animations is it's doing the work for us. We've already kind of hinted at it. Each of these planets is spinning on its own, but we're using the parent, in this case the empty group, or group with one thing in it, to have a rotation to take it around the planet. So the planet's rotating itself, then it's rotating around the Earth. The same is true for the moon. We can use the Earth orbit as its parent to get it to go around the sun with Earth. So I drag and drop this by middle mouse clicking on and holding on the moon in the outliner and drag it into the Earth orbit. And you can tell that you have a dotted box around the object here, and let go. It will add the moon to the Earth. And again, I advise that you do this on frame 1. Now, once you've done that, the moon will follow the orbit around. It'll be a little, it's too fast. Maybe we should slow that down just for this sake. But it is going around that. Yeah, we might have this down just so we can track this a little bit better. So you can see that the moon is always staying on the outside as of right now around the sun. It's not going around the Earth. Now, it goes around the Earth roughly, what, 12 times? I'm not sure exactly what it is. It might be 13. That's why we have a, like I said, we have like a lunar calendar of some kind. So, like I said, we do want this to go around the Earth, because it's not it's not a daily thing. It has its own like 28 days, 24 days cycle, whatever it is, as it goes around. So we do want this to go around, but the moon does not need, at least Earth's moon does not need to rotate on its own axis. We never see the dark side of the moon. In fact, I even think they put the dark side. That's fine. I'm just gonna leave it alone. But you never see the dark side. It's always the same face. It's tidal locked or gimbal locked. I forget the term. It's always locked. It's a really big moon. I'm gonna make it a little smaller. So we don't need it to spin on itself. So what I'm saying is we don't need to put its own group to get a moon orbit to go around the Earth. We could just theoretically just use its own pivot point. So with the moon selected, what I need to do is move its pivot point to the Earth. So again, select the moon, hit the D key, the delta key. Move this to here. Now, if you did what I did, is always snap to grid. This is kind of one of the reasons I did it. You can also hold down the X key while moving it, and to get it to snap to grid, which your Earth should be on a grid thing. If not, you can just eyeball it. But It's up to you. All right, there you go. You can see it's now on there. Now this doesn't do anything yet. I have to add animation. What we're going to do is I'm going to key, obviously key 0, 0. And honestly, I don't know if it goes, I don't know the answer to this. I don't know if it goes around the same direction as the moon, or if it goes the opposite direction. I'm going to mix it up and try it the reverse way, just to see how it looks. I might be completely wrong, but like I say with a lot of animation, it doesn't matter if it looks wrong. All it matter if it's wrong, all that matters is look good. So there's a lot of mistakes in film that aren't necessarily accurate, but we do them because they look good. So all right, I'm going to go ahead and key this at negative 1800. I'll try 1800 first. And then, so I'm going to go in the reverse direction, and I'm going to key that. And then I'm going to make this linear. You can see it's going in a different direction. It's negative value now. Make that linear. And then, and I could be completely wrong on this. I'm going to go ahead and play this. And again, I might have to slow this down to really judge this because it's way too fast. It is way too fast. So, all right, let's go ahead and take care of that. I was trying to avoid doing this until the very end, but I can't really successfully judge this. So we can do this quite easily. In fact, maybe, if you're not too far, you could have done this at the beginning. Again, I was doing this for the video for sake of time. But I'm going to go ahead and select each one of these objects that has animation on it. And don't forget the groups. So in the outline are basically all these things. And what you do is you can see there's just a bunch of lines. So there's one, and here is the last one. So if I just drag a box around all these last ones, we have values, which we're not going to mess with. But we have a stat, which is the time. So if I change this to be 900, which is, again, 30 seconds, so it's 900 divided by 30, that'll extend the time. Now again, if I hit the F key, frames everything. So now this animation is not, make sure you change down here as well. This animation is now 30 seconds long instead of 10 seconds long. So because it was so simplistic, all we had to do is select these last keyframes, change the stat value, everything's changed. All right, so if we rewind this and play this, we can probably make this out a little bit better. Definitely can read that a lot better. Still fast, but we can track it with our eyes. So we can see the Earth spinning. I don't really see the moon moving too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually increase this number a bit. I'm going to go to the very last frame. Now it's 900. I'm going to make this negative 3600. And I'm just going to key right over on top of it. You can always key right on top of it and it'll overwrite the keyframe. All right, rewind this, hit play. It looks pretty good. Going around and around, we can see the Earth spinning, and we can see the moon going the opposite direction. Again, I don't know if that's accurate or not, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it like that because I like the way that looks. Okay. Still a bit on the fast side for me, but again, I'm not going to go any longer than this for the sake of time. Okay, now actually everything else is pretty much repetition. There is nothing new at this point. I'm going to stop this, rewind this whole thing, and I'm just going to go ahead and step through each one of these now. I'm not going to, you're more than welcome to as many moons as you want. Technically, you don't even need to go in the same direction. I put them all kind of on a line here, but I mean, you can make these moons. Okay, we'll do one more moon, just so I can show this. I'm not going to even give it the luxury of a name. I'm going to move it to Mars here, but you don't need to do the moons. I mean, again, I don't know what's accurate, but I mean, if you wanted to, you could do the moons going like this. So I just rotated it up first. We can put a 45 on here, and then maybe have it rotate. Doesn't seem right to me, but you could do that if you wanted to. So you can kind of have it come around. It seems like to me the planet would affect it. So like I said, this was probably wrong, but again, I know on Earth, but that's fine. So you can see that would look kind of interesting, but or you can do what, put it higher and spin it up. I'd have to do more research to know if I'm doing the scientifically accurate. All right, so that, I just copied that moon to show you. I'm not gonna finish the moons out here. Again, I'm just gonna key selected, and I'm gonna go ahead and go to the last value here once again, and I'm gonna go ahead and minus 360 off of that, and it's gonna be at 1800, and I'm gonna key that. That's my oops. I accidentally did that from my planet spinning. But you know what? That's fine. You know what? I'm going to leave it for the same thing. Do that for Mars. I'm go make sure mark it linear. Do that over here on the other the other thing. Hopefully you guys make sure you remember that. The outliner, or sorry, not the outliner, the graph editor under Windows, animation editor, graph editor. And again, I'm going to select Mars, group it to itself, and I'm going to call this Mars orbit. And I'm gonna go ahead and give it the exact same keyframes. Zero on frame 1. Go to the very end. 1800 on the rotate Y. Key selected. And once again, select your keyframes in the graph editor, linear. And I'll go ahead and we'll just go ahead and go step through these. And then I'll go ahead and do key selected. And I don't know, I'll do 720. Again, I don't know what the day-night cycles are on all the planets. And then I'm going to go ahead and mark it linear. And then I'm going to go ahead and Command G, Control G, and I'm going to call this Jupiter orbit. And then I'm going to go ahead and do its orbit around the sun, which is going to be, once again, rotate Y 0. Go to the very end, minus off 360, and it's going to be 1440. Once again, select these keys, linear. All right, let's take a look at what we got here. We got 3 more planets to go, but we kind of skipped a few here. We went 1, 2. So you can see, there it goes. It's looking pretty good. We got them going around and around and around and around and around and around. All right, go ahead and stop that. Hit rewind. All right, finish off Saturn here. So go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and do its day-night cycle. Again, key selected 0. In fact, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and repeat that for these. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to the very last frame, and I'll do this one 1440. I'm just going to make them all 1440. See what that looks like. Key selected. Key selected. You can also select this and hit the G key again, because it's the last thing I did was key selected. I'm going to select these all. You can see I'm doing them all at once now. Just select them all. Linear. And then, unfortunately, you have to do each group one time, because if you had them all selected, I'll put them all in one group. So Saturn orbit. Select this one. Control G. Orbit. And select this one. Control G. And its orbit. Okay. And then again, we'll select these all, go frame beginning, key selected, go to the last one, and do these each one at a time. So this one was 1440 minus, Saturn's orbit is 1440 minus 360, which is 1080. Selected. And then I'll go ahead and I'll make them all linear at the end. And then this one's orbit is, again, minus 360, which is 720. And then the last one's orbit is 360. All right, and then I got to select each one of these orbits, bring up them in the graph editor. I'm going to drag a box, select them all, mark them linear, and you can see with that we should be done with all the planets. They should actually spin around and do all kinds of fun stuff. So if we look at this and we hit rewind and play, they all go around and eventually they come back into that whole linear thing. So when they're out there, you can kind of see them just kind of going around, doing their thing. Again, Mercury's the fastest. It goes around the most. And eventually, about at 30-second mark, so we have like a planetary alignment going on. So you can see, and again, this is not accurate to our solar system. I mean, there's no parabolic or whatever like oval shape to them on the rotations. It's a fun little exercise to teach you guys um, hierarchies and how they can help you on things. So this is the first part of this. In the next part, I'm going to probably go into a little bit more of the rendering process, maybe a few more things to show you that what you can do with hierarchies that fit this kind of assignment. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Again, it's a lot of repetition and it's very formulaic, but it's a great exercise in the parent-child hierarchies and grouping to get this to work. So again, go ahead and practice that if you're having any issues. Like I said, just kind of, break it down, try again. It's always okay to, delete something and try again. And then, yeah, just keep on creating with Maya and then see you guys all next time.